Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Hello, Corey.
Hi, Tess. I like that we just start laughing every time, like, we're doing a podcast.
We're at it again. Oh, my goodness. So, I don't know why, but for some reason, last week, so for our listeners, we're on our book, End Emotional Eating.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, we recorded the episode on chapter 2. And I'm not sure why, but for some reason, that felt like such a hurdle to get past. It was like we had so many things that kind of tripped us up in recording. And then I think that in itself made me nervous about talking about it for some reason. So I feel much better now that we made it past the chapter on accepting the idea of acceptance.
Yes, I think so. And then just the getting started sometimes is the hard part, right? Like just moving through these chapters and then reading them. And because I think I read chapters 1 and 2 a couple different times as I tried to start reading the book. And now it was like, okay, now we're on to chapter 3 and I've made it through the end of it and I'm still alive.
Yes.
No one's come to my kitchen as the food patrol and arrested me. Like, I don't know if that's what I thought would happen. Like sirens flashing. Woo, woo, woo. Corey, you're in trouble. Like, wait a minute. Time out. That's not what this is about.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm no longer going to be arrested.
And I think that's like, that kind of makes me think about this chapter, which is called Mindful Moments, and being mindful about what you're feeling and like what you're walking into things with. And I think that's a good self-reflection to know that you were feeling like you were going to get in trouble. That's a good thing to be mindful about and to be curious about.
And I'm in anticipation for the learning curve to be around the curve. Like, when you're driving and you finally get around the corner that you feel like, am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Ooh, what?
Right.
And then it's like you're back on the straight road again. So I feel like this is the curve of, whoa, wait a minute. So I feel like I'm awkward at paying attention to my feelings, and I'm awkward at expressing them, and awkward. I just feel awkward. Like, and like, and not necessarily as mixed up as I felt before. Like, figuring out, like, I've learned some tools. We know to start small. We know that Jesus is with us. We know that he's not leaving us. Like, it's just like, okay, how can I be mindful and learn the next thing and not feel like I have to learn 100 things by tomorrow?
Right?
Like, what?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, so like for our listeners, you had talked a little bit about, as we were getting ready for this, that you spent a long time in your life feeling like maybe you had the wrong impression about mindfulness, or you felt like maybe, and meditation, like maybe it was confusing. And so I think maybe that would be a good thing to clear up as we talk about this. Like one of the quotes that I really liked from the chapter is, when you practice mindfulness, you practice living with intention. It's the opposite of being a slave to habit and indulging impulses. And it just made me think that totally goes along with like all of the principles in the Bible, like to, like the verse about counting the cost before you build a tower, like, intentional living. So, what do you think your thoughts were before really like learning about mindfulness and meditation? What were your thoughts on it?
Well, that it was, some other religious experience that wasn't connecting you to Jesus. And then I just felt like it was like, oh, you're going to sit there and you're not going to think about anything. I don't think I've ever had that experience. Like, it's like, how many thoughts can I have at one time?
Right.
So I think it's just But I think I've confused that with, or not, or I don't know what, but like just that idea of sitting with something. I feel like, oh, that's meditating. That's thinking. Like, what are you being mindful about? What are you intention? And versus just like fast forward and you don't even know what you're doing. And I don't know why we keep going back to driving, but when you drive home and you're thinking about other things and you're like, wait, was I paying attention to how I was driving? Like,
right.
How much did I lean on muscle memory there? Like,
yes.
Which I know our brains are amazing and can handle a lot of situations, but it just was like, oh, what if I was mindfully in that car? Like,
right. Yeah.
Noticing. So it just is interesting. And then it feels right now like it takes a lot of energy to learn how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I liked, she was saying practicing mindfulness is like turning the lights on.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, but it's not instantaneous. So the light is like, but a light switch seems instantaneous, but apparently we're setting up the electrical grid and we're getting the wires connected and then we're going to turn the light on. So
my husband, the electrician, will tell you that a lot goes into turning a light on.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Yes. Well, and I loved what she said too. She said, you don't get mindful. You practice mindfulness over time, building skill and patience.
Yeah.
Mindfulness increases mental flexibility, opening new options to you, and actually thickens the middle prefrontal cortex of your brain, facilitating acting in accordance with your goals. And I think that, I don't know, that just is so powerful to me. Like, I love learning about how things work in our brains along with like what we do, with our intentions, and that just makes me think of like, we've had conversations sometimes with our kids when somebody's had like a big blow up, and just talk about like, whoa, how did that feel when you were having that experience? And a lot of times it's a feeling of like, man, that's not what I wanted to do, but that's what I ended up doing, and I think when we don't practice mindfulness, we are often like caught up, when we have big feelings, caught up in this chain of reactions almost. And sometimes it feels like, wow, I don't have any control over this. And I think it's important to remember, in the moment it feels that way, but we do have the ability to give ourselves skills using mindfulness and things like that to help us in that moment. And I take that to heart for myself as well. I don't want to get into those points, like you said, with the driving, where I'm just kind of not actually paying attention to where I'm going in that moment,
Which is a huge contrast. I'm just thinking right now, like when I first learned how to drive and driving down the highway, where now I could just like zoom through and sleep through it, right? And now but that experience when I first was driving, every single car coming at me, and am I in the middle of the lane, and am I pushing the gas enough, and is it raining? Like everything was like it was consuming, right? Like, so that was learning the skill of driving. And now fast forward, I can go, did I think about that?
Right.
So
did I stop at the stop sign?
Oh, so that gives me hope right now. Like practicing, it's good to practice things. And I feel like God's been speaking to me in lots of different areas over the last, just trying to think about food and reframing like how I think about it. And so some of these things that she talks about in the chapter just definitely were like, oh yeah, I was kind of thinking about that. But Jennifer just said them so well. And I like how she's smart and has had a lot of studies mixed in, but it doesn't feel like it's so overwhelming that when you're reading it, it doesn't feel like she's making you feel stupid.
Right.
It's like, hey, or I don't feel spoon fed either. Like, this is how you think about so I feel like it's like, okay, I want to rise to this level that she's talking about. Like, I want to be a skilled NASCAR driver and drive around my kitchen. We're going to just drive this to the ground.
Right? The analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to go. Come on, people, let's drive.
I do love the way she writes, though. It's very intuitive, but
Yeah.
also very like challenging, like challenging
Yeah.
your thoughts and perceptions on
Yes.
things. So, I think that I also liked what she was talking about. So she kind of talks about paying attention to like the food that you're eating, not just like why you're eating the food, but also, she was talking about one of her clients was like so like thinking that a bagel and cream cheese or something was so many calories, but a smoothie was so much better. And she said they actually went and looked and the difference between them wasn't that much. And, so sometimes we have this perception about certain foods that we end up kind of punishing ourselves or like, well, I can't have this thing and I really want it,
Right.
and then come to find out it really wouldn't have made that much of a difference if we had had that thing that we were wanting. And
Right.
but to practice mindfulness when you're eating, because that is helpful to slow you down and help you not to like,
Yeah.
overeat.
Well, and I think the first little chunk of things she was talking about, or how are we mindless in our eating and multitasking, eating too quickly, eating from the fridge or on the run, lack of awareness of our, how do you say that word? When you're satisfied? Satiety, S-A-T-I-E-T-Y, page 72.
Let me
When
see.
you're satisfied, and then a lack of awareness of our emotions and a lack of what we're eating. That's like what you were touching on. So I just thought it was interesting. And a lot of these things are before you even get the fork to your mouth. Just
Right.
it's like setting the table. Let's go with that analogy for a minute. Like, what if I set the table, made some food and sat down and enjoyed, like it made it, not that I want to make it more complicated to eat good food and that it has to have this whole table setting, but just, I like the idea of it being like, what if I wasn't rushed around so much that I could actually pay attention to what I was doing
Yeah.
and live in that moment and taste the tastes and
Yeah. Well, and
eat for the right reason, not because I'm emotional, because I didn't take the time to eat lunch that day and I was too busy, and then I got really hungry and hangry and everything falls off the rails then, and
right.
your car's a mess and wrappers are everywhere and you've been on a road trip for 5 days. Like, what is going on with our car now?
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So
I think so. She was talking about kind of approaching, instead of always viewing it in these terms of I'm starving or I'm so full, like that's kind of like an all or nothing approach, to come from it in like a moderate. So when am I moderately hungry? When am I moderately full? And that it takes time to learn to be more attuned to your body in that way. Because like you said, sometimes you're just so busy that then you realize I am starving, and then it's not a good place to come to the table from, because you want to eat all the things, or you're yelling at the people about the things they're not eating or whatever, like because you're just so irritated. Being hangry.
Do you have things, people? Right?
What? It's like those Snickers commercials where they're like hangry and they turn into this like crazy person, and then once they eat the Snickers they're like fine and back to normal. But it's like being hangry is not good.
Yeah, that's even in the V8 commercials, right? People walk around sideways until they have their V8. That was an old commercial.
Yeah, so I think this is also something that I want to be better at practicing. Because with my kids, I notice it's always like, I'm starving. And then I'm so full. And then like 10 minutes later, I'm hungry. It's like, what? Okay.
But yeah.
So But how can I expect them to be mindful about it if I'm not willing to enter that place as well, you know?
Yeah.
I
Well,
love
no. Or go
oh,
ahead.
one of the lines she said is, you can chomp your food or you can cherish it. And I was like, it reminds me of a Don't Mom Alone episode where they talked about food and like as you eat it. Well, and I think she talked about one of her clients on this one too, like doing the same kind of thing, like thinking about where did this food come from? Like
Yeah.
what went into the making of it? What went into the growing of it? Like
Yeah.
how did it get from there to here, you know, and like being thankful for those things instead of just like, this took me 30 minutes to prepare it and now it's going to take me 5 seconds to consume it. You know, it just
Yeah.
kind of balancing that out.
Right. And then I just was also telling myself, like, there's going to be another meal.
Yes, that's
Like,
good.
excuse me. You can stop eating right now, Corey. You're going to be okay. Like, it was just like an interesting feeling like, oh, I'm feeling full. What if I stopped right now? Okay.
Yeah.
So it just was like, I don't have to finish what's on my plate either.
Yeah.
Like, how about that? And what if I picked things I wanted to eat, but I didn't get crazy?
Right. Yeah.
Or, you know, like, let's have a little cinnamon roll, not a plate size cinnamon roll. And you can enjoy that. Or what, you know, whatever it is. Again, finding a seed, giving thing. Take a picture. I like that, what she was saying. If you feel too busy to write stuff down, what if you took a picture of you while you're eating?
Yeah.
And then it would be like a different, like, oh,
a way
how
to bring
did that make
like
me feel?
yeah, maybe a less legalistic food journal kind of a thing, you know, not actually writing down like 1 cup of this and, you know, half a cup of this, but just like, here's what my meal looks like. And then she even noted maybe taking time to like just jot down, here's how I felt before I ate.
Yeah.
Here's how I felt after I ate. And she said, taking a moment to notice your food before eating and taking a moment to notice your sensations after eating may bring meaning and even sanctity to a moment that you may associate with shame. I thought that was so powerful. Like, we can change it around. We don't have to have this, oh gosh, I ate so much, or I ate this food that, you know, makes me feel badly, and now I'm just a failure, you know?
Yeah.
So the last, go ahead.
You go ahead.
The last kind of part of the chapter, she's talking about mind states of mind. And she talks about emotional mind. Gosh, what was the other one?
Reasonable
mind. Rational, or reasonable mind, and then wise mind, which is a combination of the two. This one was
That's what makes me laugh because I'm uncomfortable now.
Yeah. I mean, it's it like using the car analogy. it feels like, you know, you can go from emotional mind and you're driving off the road to then overcorrecting and choosing just reasonable mind, and then crashing, you know, instead sticking to the middle of the road and with the wise mind, you know, which is using your reasonable brain to bring logic into the situation, but also acknowledging that your emotional mind has value, you know, like your emotions have value. So how can you bring those two together into a situation to make the best decisions?
Yeah. I was just laughing because I feel like my car just is spinning around in the emotional mind. There's no rational mind, reasonable mind in this moment sometimes.
Right.
And then just like saying what she was saying, reasonable mind is we make the decisions intentionally, intellectually, using facts to influence our choices. Emotional mind or emotion mind, emotions govern our mind and behavior. So it just was like, what are we like going back to the bagel and smoothie thing? Like, were you using your reasonable mind or your emotional mind in that smoothie conversation? And it ended up that she could have had the bagel and was not in a huge deficit.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and that's a simple illustration, but I need simple right now to be able to understand what?
right. Well, and I was thinking, there was this one part where she says, if you are prone to anxiety, you might be in reasonable mind in a moment of intimacy, analyzing your behavior or trying to evaluate your partner's experience. And I know that's not exactly what we're talking about, but like, I think I struggle with that sometimes, with the feeling of my reasonable mind is the only trustworthy one.
Mm,
And my emotional mind is just crazy and off the rails. And I think that's a belief that I kind of learned about
yeah.
emotions as a kid. And coming to the point where I can see, and we talked a little bit about this a couple chapters ago, that our emotions are meaningful. Like they're not just this crazy wackadoodle thing we have to like struggle with, And
Yeah.
so kind of coming from that side of always thinking, well, the reasonable mind is the only good way to do anything,
Mm-hmm.
to correct and say, no, my emotions are meaningful, but somehow I have to join the two together. And that takes being mindful. I think that is what I'm like taking away from this.
Yeah. Which apparently I need some pit stops. Going back to the car analogy again, because I just need to have a timeout where I'm not trying to drive either one of them, so
Oh,
then I can
yes.
actually figure out what I'm trying to do. So that's the
Yes.
part where I feel so awkward because it's not automatic. It's like I need to remove myself from situations
Yes.
and yeah. So does
Well, and
that
that
mean I need to cry in the bathroom for a minute to kind of understand what was going on with wanting iced tea? Like maybe. So that's a
maybe,
little too personal right now, but it
but
happened, folks.
it's
Oh.
good. It's good. It's like if you don't take the time to talk about and think about those things, it's not like they're going to go away. They're just going to
No.
be worse. So good for you, friend, for talking about it.
Well, yeah. Thanks.
Because maybe other people have cried over iced tea too.
Yeah, like what is going on? Well, yeah, leading up to that, I don't feel like I did any of the other things of are you slowing down? Are you giving thanks? Are you in the moment you're in? Like it was like no, I wasn't.
And
So,
that's why we get to practice acceptance,
yes.
right?
Oh yeah, back to chapter 2.
Right? That you're doing the best you can and you can grow. And that's a beautiful place to be.
Thanks, friend.
And it just reminds me of Jesus, not the crying over iced tea, but
Yeah.
um like he was often surrounded by people and would go and be alone with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Jesus needs to do that, like if Jesus needed to take that time,
Yeah.
of course we do.
Mm-hmm.
But we're often so busy that we run around and we don't do it. So the verse that I wanted to read today was Psalm 46:10, which says, He says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. But the being still part is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably a skill that I'm going to be needing to improve for the
Yeah.
rest of my life. But
Well, in verse
yeah.
1 of that same chapter 46 says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, I will not fear. So it's like, okay, he's here with us all the time, and we can go to his house.
Yeah.
Wow. And then we can be still. So then we're sitting in Jesus' house. I think that's called a lovely place.
Yes. And that makes me think of Mary and Martha, like
Yeah.
the story about Martha being so busy
Right.
and Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus and just focusing on relationship. And I was thinking about that today, like about how I want to apologize to my kids for sometimes valuing doing things right over being in right relationship, and how that can just throw us off so much. So I think, yeah, I don't know if that applies to what we're talking about, but
But
whatever.
It's like putting it to practice, because then it's like I was asking Steph, and I'm like, I need help navigating through. We're at a birthday party this weekend. And so there was cupcakes and cake and sweet things and lots of abundance all around us. And so part of the time it's like I could be the yes mom, but then it was like, oh, should I not be the yes mom? Like, or yes, and then we can stop. Like, so I was just needing, like, as I'm learning this personally, now trying to teach my son at the same time, it's like kind of like that. What you're like, okay, what did you say with the relationship versus
focused on doing what's right versus being in right relationship.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know if that fits exactly either, but I was just needing help. I was like, Stefan, I need you to help me because I don't know all these answers. And it's like,
yeah,
blah. I'm trying to figure them out in my own head and then trying to sort through, okay, what did Riker already eat? Does he feel satiated? I don't even know. Like,
so you said it, friend.
Yeah, there it is. So it's like, okay, so apparently I'm learning, yay. And then trying to teach that. And then even like I was, Kendra Adachi, our other friend, she was on, I don't remember I think it was her podcast. She was talking about food in the summer, and she just has a snack bag they take to the pool, and her kids can just eat whatever they want out of it. She doesn't want to monitor snack patrol. Yeah. And so, but she'll ask her daughter, like, hey, how does your tummy feel right now? What happens if you waited another 5? Like, so she's trying to teach her daughter how to listen to her body about, am I actually thirsty? I don't actually need more fruit snacks right now, or
right.
What? So I just thought that was interesting, like just having a list of questions I could ask Riker.
Yeah, that's so
obviously
good.
He needs a mom still because he's 6, but I can also like go, hey, what about
help guide him how to be mindful of what's going on in his own body.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
And then just like the giving thanks thing, we were out at a restaurant and we kept telling Riker he had to say thank you and please when he was ordering. And then I was like going, I don't think I had said that. So then I was telling the waitress, please and thank you. Like, sorry that it was, like it was just like, how much am I expecting him to do that I'm not even doing? Right. And where's that line of like, why are we so intent on him being so polite? Am I being polite? Like, yeah. I don't know. It's just interesting. Good. So.
Well, I'm excited I get to learn with you, friend. It's nice to have a buddy on this road trip that we're on.
Yes.
And where we can learn to cherish our food and not just chomp it.
Yes.
All right.
Sunglasses and the top down. We're in a convertible now.
Yes.
Wind in our hair, friend. Oh, I don't know. Anyway. And we don't have to eat McDonald's in the car.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus.
Oh, man. Okay. Thank you for listening to me ramble about everything today.
Thank you, friend.
Yes. We'll be mindful again this week. And then what's the next? Or maybe we'll be talking about the Lazy Genius Kitchen next time.
Yes. That'll be good. I'm excited.
Yeah. And then emotional intelligence.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Ooh, we're going to make it.
We will. All right. Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend.
Bye.
Bye.